It's time to get
spooky.
the 90s. A time when many a fantastical and, quite frankly, weird things were born, including, but not limited to, me, inflatable furniture, purple ketchup, clothing ensembles composed entirely of denim, the Macarena, Beanie Babies, and of course, the reason you're here, the X-Files. Like most young children of the 90s, I was exposed to many a show and movie that I probably shouldn't have been watching. Yet the X-Files still remains one of my favorite television shows for all of its quirky, sometimes scary, and often ridiculous perfection. Currently, I am doing a rewatch of all of the episodes. Rewatching the show obviously has me deep in the nostalgia, but it has also awakened a hunger for merch. And since I can never be satisfied with a simple purchase from the store, besides a shirt, which I love, I have to make my own merch. Because why spend a perfectly reasonable amount of money on something when you could try really, really hard to make it cheap or thrifted and ultimately end up potentially spending the same amount of money that you were trying to save? Regardless, I want to make something inspired by the show, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So what do I want to make, you ask? Well, I want to make a lot of things actually, and I've been going back and forth on this, but I think I've settled on a simple diorama of an alien abduction. Do I know how exactly I'm going to do this? Not really. However, I'm ready to go to the drawing board. So, what I have in mind is a small-scale UFO with what will likely be a glass or plastic dome. I would prefer glass, but we'll see. And then, of course, the saucer portion, which I'll likely make out of clay, possibly having something as a base for the clay, and then paint it to hopefully appear metallic. It has to have lights, that's non-optional, and then, of course, a beam, which will likely also be some other sort of glass, probably a cup. And then we have our central dum-dums, Molder, obviously operating the UFO, because tell me he wouldn't. The alien looking absolutely shooketh, and Scully probably being equally as flabbergasted. Also, it's a need, not a want, for the beam to light up as well. And that is my master plan. I hope you like it. And I'm planning on thrifting most of the materials. In fact, I'm headed straight to the thrift store to try to see what I can find. So let's go. When we last spoke, I was headed to the thrift store to procure materials for this project. And I believe that I was somewhat successful. Aside from this totally radical shirt, the other things I thrifted were some foam blocks, a tiny rounded glass cup, and this. It's a French fry holder. Yeah, well, I thought if I flipped it upside down, it looks pretty dang similar to the beam of a UFO. And it provides me the perfect base for my saucer. Now, I realize that this is made out of metal and it presents its own challenges. Dear reader, in the literary world, they call this foreshadowing. I don't know how I'm going to make it look like light, but I'm gonna try my best. I started out using this white foam for the saucer portion of my UFO, but unfortunately I cracked it and it was too small anyways, so I ended up using the green foam portion instead, and that worked a lot better, even though it was really messy and very difficult to work with. Then I poked a few holes and started pulling the lights through. Once I had the lights semi-secure, I started to build up the actual form of the saucer. And yes, I did in fact choose to use my nemesis air dry clay, and here's why. It's what I had. And word to the wise, air dry clay over craft floral foam is a texture nightmare. My UFO has officially been covered in clay, and now the U may very well stand for ugly because this is looking rough. It's lopsided, for sure, which largely has to do with the fact that when I cut the circle for the dome, I did not center it up 100% correctly, and that effect has unfortunately dominoed, and now the entire thing is off center. To sum it up, this is currently how I feel about this project. I'm currently experiencing a dilemma. I don't know what to do. I started painting the base of my UFO. I hated it. It was hideous. I'm wondering if I should even use this anymore. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not feeling very hopeful. I don't know how this is gonna turn out, but I'm gonna keep going. And she did keep going. But alas, it was for naught, because no matter what color she painted it or what mediums she used, it just would not work. So after a few feral screams into the void, she made the decision to try something else. So with that disaster resting in peace, gone but not forgotten, it was time to get started on some of the smaller elements inside of the UFO. Since Bolger would be operating this UFO, I wanted there to be a control panel for him. So I started sculpting all manner of various little knobs and levers and buttons. Then it was time for the most exciting and ultimately most horrific and traumatizing part, sculpting the people. Also, basically the ending of Alien Romulus. Anywho, I know that this video probably makes it seem like this took mere hours. However, I managed to somehow draw the sculpting portion of this project out for days. I think here I'm sculpting, Bolger's torso.
Scully, you're not gonna believe this.
I accidentally made one arm like way buffer than the other one. Fox Bolger. More like Fox Bolger, am I right? Next up, sculpting the teeny tiny Gillian Anderson. She looks absolutely snatched in this trench coat button-down combo. Yeah, it was really fun to make. I really started getting the hang of this super Sculpey. However, I think next time I probably will not opt for the flesh color because everything I made looked absolutely disgusting and quite frankly reminiscent of Silence of the Lambs. I believe I'm pretty much done sculpting pieces for inside of the UFO. I have been doing this in batches, and the reason that this is taking me so long is because I literally agonized over every detail of Bolger and Scully's faces. I don't know why, because they're going to be like inside this dome, and I mean, it's not like you can see them completely uninhibited. So I also finished sculpting their clothing, which I'm only doing from the waist up because I don't think you'll be able to see much more than that. And then I also sculpted an alien. I was kind of going for like somewhere in between ugly and cute. Like he's fugly, but not in the bad way. He's fun ugly. I'd like to formally call this portion of the video failure montage. There was an incident in which I accidentally broke my original glass dome, and so here I was not only creating a base for my figures, but also trying all manner of ways to create my own plastic dome, and nothing was working, and I'm gonna be honest with you. This is the point where I almost quit this entire project. However, by the grace of the $1.25 tree, I did eventually find a replacement. For the assembly, I used an old tube of nail glue that I had lying around, and I just plopped those babies on in there. I am a little irritated that I kind of hid the better half of Scully's face behind Mulder's massive head, but it is what it is. Next, I got started on a little hatch door that I wanted to affix to the top of my dome. I added a little hinge and a latch, and it was all done. After gluing down my replacement dome, which fit perfectly, by the way, I got started on painting the hatch door. I used that same metallic silver from earlier, coupled with a little bit of black to give it a little bit more depth and kind of dinginess, and then I even painted an X for X-Files on top and added a surprise that you'll see at the end. At last, it was time to make the base, which I had kind of been dreading. I got another one of these little foam floral things and painstakingly carved it to look like a slice of earth, and then painted the dirt. In lieu of static grass, which I certainly wish that I had, but my wallet is happy that I don't, I just used this hay bale decoration. I pulled out a bunch of the little pieces of hay, and then I made a mixture of paint and water and sort of dyed them. Had to put the shirt back on because we've come full circle and we are finally at the end of this project. I thought I would go ahead and do a little bit of the final assembly on camera, and then at the end of the video, you'll see me again for a little project wrap up. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to adhere this grass kind of randomly. If I had an unlimited project budget, I would have bought something like static grass, just because it's way cooler and it looks probably more realistic. But you know, we're working with what we have as per usual, and this is what I have. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to make like some little clumps and then kind of try to stick them upright. And I'm also just taking some of these bigger clumps and cutting them up because I don't like how thick they are. And while I wait for the hot glue gun to heat up, I'm going to try to assemble the beam with my little light. I bought a little LED light that has a remote and you can change colors at will. That looks really nice. Doesn't look quite as nice like that, but this looks great. If you had asked me what I thought my career would be at this age when I was a child, I probably would have said something like veterinary detective or rhinestone cowboy. But no, I'm girl gluing U.F.O at 2:30 in the afternoon. All right, I think the assembly portion of the U.F.O is complete. I'm gonna go clean up a couple of small things off camera, and then I'm gonna unveil this bad boy. Thank you so much for being here. I really and truly hope that you enjoyed this video in all of its randomness, and I hope that you'll stick around for a little bit more of my artistic chaos. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Skinner wants to report in 1 hour. What are you going to tell him?
What do you mean, what am I going to tell him? I'm going to tell him exactly what I saw. What are you going to tell him?
I'll tell him exactly what I saw. Well, there is a psychological fixation called hematodipsia, which causes the sufferer to gain erotic satisfaction from consuming human blood.
Erotic. Yeah.
4:54 p.m. Begin autopsy on white male, age 60, who is arguably having a worse time in Texas than I am.
Hi, it's my first day. It's an honor to be working with you, Agent Scully.
Heart weighs 370 grams. Tissue appears healthy. Left lung weighs 345 grams. Tissue appears healthy. Large intestine, 890 grams. Yada, yada, yada. What do you mean you want me to do another autopsy? Why do I have to do it right now? I just spent hours on my feet doing an autopsy, all for you. I do it all for you, Mulder.
Scully, what happened?
I came to in the cemetery. Please just keep reminding him you were drunk.
Would you stop that?
It couldn't hurt.
Just stop it.
Do